Six. Good morning. Soon it will be good afternoon. Welcome to you all. Let me welcome you and thank you for participating in this session, especially our dear guests. And let us start our work. The thing is such that we academicians have used to deliver 20-minute speech during conferences or 15 minutes. Today, please note that everyone must fit their speech within 7 minutes. I have a program with a timing for presentations. For example, it starts at 10:12 and finishes at 10:19. These are the deadlines, and after our session, other events will be held. We must make it to other events as well. Please keep this in mind. It is a very interesting session related to the traditions of our peoples, tourism, and Islam. Islam and tourism are the core topics of the discussion during our session. So I wish everyone successful presentations. Let us start. I take my watches off and start watching the time. The first speech is supposed to be done by Mr. Vayakin, International Cooperation in the field of cultural branding of the Muslim world. Please, Mr. Vayakin, please proceed. Where is he? He is not here. He is away. I see. It is written that his presence is confirmed. Then let us start with the second one. It's Mr. Leonid Sukyanin, the role of Islamic legal culture in the strategic partnership between Russia and the Islamic world. It is even better that we start with you, and God bless us. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of the forum in general and this section in particular for the invitation and the possibility to deliver a short speech. I hope that this speech will be within the general thematics of the forum and will supplement the speeches and presentations of my colleagues. Yesterday, during the meeting of the Strategic Vision Group, Islam and Tatarstan and the Islamic World, Rais of Tatarstan delivered a speech, and they were speaking about the construction and maybe the attempt to build multipolar world instead of single or double polar. I understand that multipolarity means not only the presence of different political and military poles of the world, but also the presence of different cultural poles of the world. And today, the government of Russia at high level highlights that the peculiarity of our approach is that we don't only defend our state and military sovereignty, but also the moral and spiritual sovereignty. And this is the main dividing line today in the world. The collective West, in our opinion, is not only a huge political, economic, and military force in the world, but also a representative of moral and spiritual values that deviate more and more from Russian values. Every civilization has their own moral values, often based on its religious traditions. Not fully, but to some extent. For the Muslim world, it is Islam. It is not only a religion, it's a culture, a way of life, and a system of moral and spiritual values. Islam, it's not only a religion, it is a specific civilization, including the legal culture. For many, it is connected with the concept of Sharia. It is impossible to imagine Islam without Sharia. When I read that Islam is against Sharia, I understand that it is said or written by a person who has no idea about Islam and the way of Muslim life. I cannot imagine Islam without Sharia. Independent legal law has a special place in the Islamic world. Islamic law plays a noticeable role in the life of many Muslim cultures, a core of the nation. If you want to understand, to have a deep insight into Islamic traditions, we must take into account the Sharia traditions and understand what is it. Unfortunately, today we have many distorted ideas about Sharia, and even today, if you go outside on the street in Kazan or in Moscow, you will hear so many distorted ideas about Sharia that you will be surprised. Indeed, Sharia institutes and principles are the core in the lives of many Muslim countries, in their social norms. Muslims are guided by Sharia principles. And communicating with Muslims without having an idea about the Sharia principles means to fail to understand the life of the Muslim world. It is also important in the aspect of the legal rules and institutions. Imagining the Muslim legal culture without Sharia and without some Muslim specifics is impossible. The norms and principles of the Muslim law affect civil relationships, entrepreneurship, investment climate, economic life, not even mentioning some other aspects. I mention only the most important aspects discussed at our forum. I don't mention even family relationships and other relationships. Let us focus on the economic interaction between Russia and Muslim world. The modern Islamic law is based on Sharia and fiqh, and it affects the individual behavior, it affects the state of mind of Muslims, the business ethics, the moral and spiritual values. We must take this impact, influence into effect to understand the Islamic world well. If a Russian entrepreneur wants to establish relationships with Islam partners, with some companies, businessmen in Islamic world, without understanding the role of Muslim law and some legal specifics, it is these businessmen would limit the possibilities for communication. The knowledge of this side of the Muslim life opens many new opportunities because for Muslims, Sharia is not an abstract idea. This is a part of their life. And the knowledge of this opens huge opportunities for those who understand these aspects of Muslim life. in comparison with those who ignores it and who believes that everything can be done based on the Western law and we can use only English. This is quite an illiterate, I would say, approach to the interaction with the Muslim people. Islamic is not strange for Russia. Now we are basing, I would say, in the leader region in terms of Islam cooperation, which is Tatarstan. Tatarstan is undoubtedly a leading region if we speak about Islam. There is, of course, Northern Caucasus with their traditions, but Tatarstan, Bashkortostan, Volga-Urals region is certainly the center of Russian Islam, bearing the values reflecting the affiliation of this region with the Islamic culture. And I would remind you, like 11 years ago, the president of Russia held a meeting in Ufa with the leaders of Russian Muslims. The main idea of his speech was, let me remind you, that the achievements of Islamic culture must be considered as an important component of the Russian national identity. Can we say now that Russian national identity includes a set of some Muslim principles? And if yes, I would like to hear what Muslim principles are a component of the Russian national identity. Who can tell me what are these principles? Many Muslims cannot list them. We must think and identify those achievements of Muslims that are part of Russian national identity. They may become a tool and a factor in the cooperation and interaction between Russia and the countries of the Islamic world. And it is also a huge field for research, for understanding the traditions of social norms, communication, institutions, principles, regulating the relationships and individual behavior in the Muslim world are focused mainly on Islamic traditions. And to conclude my speech, of course, every speaker believes that their topic is the most important one. It is normal in science and among academicians. It is impossible to work on a problem if you don't believe it is crucial and very important. Every academician must believe that their topic, the area of research, is the most important one. And what I have outlined now, I believe it is a very important factor in our relationships with the Muslim world. We must work on deep learning and teaching of of Muslim law and culture in Russian universities. It has not been done so far. Now we are in Kazan, in Tatarstan. This city, in the 19th century, this city was the center of teaching Muslim law and Muslim culture in Russia. Then it moved to St. Petersburg. Do we have such a center today, playing the same role and the same significance as Kazan University had in the 19th century? I believe there is no such center. That's why we shall think about teaching Muslim law in Russian universities and also familiarize Muslim countries with the Russian law. I want to come up with a proposal that Kazan State University may become the center of such a work, based on the traditions late in the 19th century. And the legal department of the Kazan Federal University may be such a center. Maybe this idea will be developed in the future in the form of certain programs. Thanks for your attention. Thank you, dear colleagues. This was Leonid Shukiainen, Doctor of Legal Sciences, the professor of the Higher School of Economics. And thank you once again. Let us continue. I see another participant is absent. You have more time, dear colleagues, than to deliver your presentation, maybe 10 minutes instead of 7. Our friends from the United Arab Emirates, Abdullah Mohammed Yusuf Al Shaibani, the CEO of the holding of Emirates International Investment Group, and Dr. Najib Abdullah Al Haj Hassan Fathani. It will be one presentation for 2, as far as I understand.
Good morning for everybody, and thank you very much that today I'm honored to be between you and اليوم
with you. And let me speak in Arabic because my colleagues would like to speak in Arabic. If we speak about law and law studies, Sharia, I'm very thankful to the colleague who has presented his speech before me. Today, we supplement each other, and I believe every single speaker among you, we shall supplement the ideas of other participants. So I want to continue this context. When we speak about Muslim law, Sharia, we must keep in mind that we have traditions and Muslim traditions and customs. And the culture is related to traditions and customs. And before speaking about the religion, I can say that some religious beliefs may be closer to Christian beliefs may be closer to me than to other Muslims. There are different ideas about Muslim law, even about Muslims, Sunnis, Shiites. But we speak about this as about a unified concept. We call it a Muslim world, not speaking about religious affiliation. Today we live in a global world which has become more open for everyone, and everyone gets access to the information which may be wrong or unchecked. These may be false sources of false, fake information. We must take this into account. We may also resort to a so-called soft power to establish a good contact between people on the basis of the human culture and good traditions and customs. Good customs and traditions, so that in the framework of these good customs and traditions, peoples could communicate and interact, so that our children could interact. We must use culture as a tool of soft power to establish healthy relationships. Today, we are developing dynamically in the framework globalization. So we must start from some common points, common for all people, based on good values. And after this, we may switch to some religious aspects and the issues of law, legal studies, and legislation. and then proceed to the issues of mutual trade, economics, and etc. Then exchange in the field of healthcare, pharmaceutics, and others. So if we want to find common ground in the field of tourism or different countries, between the representatives of different cultures, different religions, beliefs, languages, we must proceed from common human values.
وهكذا. أما القوانين فهي تتبدل وحتى
and then to start to develop the possibilities of religious communication. If we talk about legislation activity and the law, the issue is that Islamic law is flexible and adaptable to each stage of time. It depends on the need of a human, and it provides what is needed by a person. So I think that crucial is first to understand the culture of a person, the tradition of the country the person lives in. Therefore, we have a global potential of shortening the distance between Christianity and Islam, Islam and Buddhism. I'm very proud that I'm representing the United Arab Emirates, and it is also an honor for me to visit Russian Federation. I have been visiting it for 7 years already. And I'm thoroughly absorbing the qualitative development of Russia, which is a great country. And Russia is moving more towards Arabian culture. And for us, it is a good sign because Russia coming closer together with Arabian world. And if we consider a touristic area, my opinion is tourism from UAE, the UAE, increased 25% for only 1 year. So it's quite an impressive number and quite ambitious number. So it is a sign of this droning together. Other Arabian countries also travel to Russia. Around 40% of Arabian tourists visit Russia. So the touristic flow of Arabian people to Russia is gladdening. So these are good qualitative instruments to activize our cooperation. I think that the Russian government should use these instruments in order to approach to the UAE. To draw together these two cultures. Therefore, all these instruments are healthy, helpful, and all these categories of citizens will have benefits from this cooperation.
وأنا أبشركم اليوم نحن لما
We should reconsider the issue of our cooperation, and we should reconsider the cooperation of our traditions. While staying in Russia, I observe that we mutually respect each other. Our citizens visit Russia with their families. One of the important questions is that we must implement this halal certification which is becoming more popular in Russia. Therefore, we are requesting Russian government to activize this direction on halal certification. I believe that Malaysia is very strong because of halal certification, and it was even the bottle of water has halal certification, and even paper tissue has halal certification sign. So it's a very good marketing approach when Arabian citizens they visit a restaurant and when they see halal certification sign, they uh, they trust this restaurant and they visit and eat in those restaurants. So halal certification is a great basis for our cooperation, even in non-Islamic countries. You know that halal certification certified products are produced in non-Islamic countries even more than in Islamic countries. And sometimes not Islamic citizens, they prefer to buy halal certified products. So it increases the tourist flow to those countries. It increases halal tourism flow. As a representative of Islamic organization, I'm requesting the government to pay their attention to Muslim traditions when forming some agendas or creating new products.
وأن يكون هناك تطوير في مسألة الحلال لزيادة السياحة.
When we consider the aspects of working on the track of soft power, it is important to take into account the interests of Muslim countries. So I'm very helpful to you for your invitation. It is an honor for me to speak in front of you for this opportunity.
اليوم اجتمعنا هني وغدا
I hope we'll meet again. Today we are here, and I hope we'll meet again tomorrow in the UAE. Thank you for speaking for 10 minutes.
Dara из Турции.
Our next speaker is Rashid Dar from Turkey, the founder and the partner of Firasa Group. He will tell us about the Muslim culture heritage.
Assalamu alaikum and hello everybody. I'm not going to deliver my talk in Arabic because I'm too shy to, but I will deliver it in English if you don't mind. There will be a portion hopefully with Arabic in it, so for those of you who are looking forward to that, you'll have that. So I'll go ahead and begin. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Rashid Dar. I recently moved to Istanbul from America to start my own advisory firm called Firasa. I want to speak today to talk about the critical role Muslim cultural heritage plays. And it's a role that I think is extremely powerful, much more so than people realize. You know, in English, we have this word, symbolic. Symbolic. Literally speaking, symbolic means something having to do with a symbol. But in practice, the word symbolic has changed in English over time. Now, when you say something is symbolic, it can also mean that it is of something of little value. So, for example, if you say to somebody, I paid him a symbolic amount of money, it means that I paid him a small amount of money. And what this tells you is that in the English-speaking mind, symbols are of little value. But I argue that this is absolutely not the case. In fact, symbols are some of the most important and powerful forces in the world today. And as the multipolar world emerges, symbols will become even more powerful. By background, I am a policy analyst. I graduated from Columbia University's School of International and Public Affairs, after which I worked as a researcher in political Islam at the Brookings Institution. The Brookings Institution is the premier think tank in Washington, D.C. Afterwards, I worked as a program officer for a large philanthropy. I gave grants in Islamic philosophy and Islamic thought at universities all over the world. I'm only mentioning my background not to bore you. I mention it just to let you know that my entire career has been spent in what are called the symbolic professions. These symbolic professions. This, I've studied religion, I've advised government, and I've worked in academia as well. And every society has what are called the symbolic professions. They are those professions which actively shape and define the symbols which we define as civilized and respectable and worthy of aspiration. What symbols these people give power to are just as important as those symbols which they do not give power to. So today I will argue to you all here that as the multipolar world accelerates and the multipolar order accelerates, and as the American-led order loses some steam, we will find that cultural heritage and cultural preservation will start to take on an extremely potent power that it did not previously have. For as long as I've been alive, the West believed that they had arrived to the end of history, as Francis Fukuyama put it. That they had figured out the only way that humanity could prosper. And for a short while, most people around the world believed this. They believed that the future was obviously going to be unipolar. That Western-style neoliberalism would become universally aspired to among all human beings. Now, operating under this assumption, so many non-Western countries began to view their own heritage as effectively dead and belonging to a past that would never and could never return. The past was simply a museum exhibit. All you can do is stare at it. But you are not allowed to inhabit that cultural world. That world is dead. And the only world that we can now inhabit was going to be the modern westernized world. In this way, the presumed universality of the West served to actively suppress the symbolic power of non-Western cultural heritage. But now things are changing around the world, and they're changing rapidly. After the murderous response of Israel to October 7th, there has been an incredible loss of faith in the West globally. And if people are losing faith in the West, then they will be seeking a new vision. They'll be seeking something else that they can aspire to. They'll be seeking a new story to be a part of. And so this is precisely the power of cultural heritage in a multipolar order. We no longer need to have just one story for the entire world. In a multipolar world, everyone can feel free to pursue their idea of history and heritage in a respectful and collegiate manner. Tourism and cultural presentation in a multipolar world must not end up being the non-West or the rest of the world debasing itself for dollars. This is a humiliating state. It's a humiliating state that so many Muslim countries find themselves in vis-a-vis their cultural heritage. As a joke, I've called this Aladdin syndrome, after the Disney movie. So what this means is that you see it often that Muslims, out of a sense of honoring their guests, this value that we have in Islam called ikram al-dayf, they do whatever they can to make their guests feel comfortable. And in trying to make their guests feel comfortable, the tourists, they oftentimes downplay the religious nature of their cultural heritage. But I think that as time goes on, um, as the Western order loses its legitimacy and a multipolar world emerges, something we will find that tourists and visitors will not want to be made so comfortable. They will want to be challenged with different ideas and different ways of life because they are out there actively seeking alternatives. In fact, many tourists actually want to be told how they should live their lives, another way forward. They want a different energy in their life. They don't want you to turn everything into a sanitized Disney experience. And when you sell your country's heritage in a desperate manner, you make it so that your own people begin to disrespect their own history and their own values. And that is not healthy for any society. I want to state here, I'm going to end soon, but this is my first time in Russia. I was so excited to come to Russia for many reasons. I read Dostoevsky in high school when I was a child. I read Crime and Punishment. That was my first Russian novel. Then I read The Notes from the Underground. Then I read Bulgakov's The Master and Margarita. I read Tolstoy's War and Peace. And while these are all very different books from different authors, a common thread in all of these books is the deep Russian sense of spirituality. Russia understands that there's real power in spirituality and in faith. In a time when other civilizations worship science and promote satanic perversions all around the world, I, as somebody who was born and raised in America, I find the Russian soul to be a breath of fresh air. I'm going to end with a story that that kind of gets to this, the heart of this. And Muslim cultures obviously have a deep sense of spirituality as well. You all may be familiar with an individual named Nizam al-Mulk. Nizam al-Mulk was a Seljuk advisor and prince. Well, he wasn't a prince, but he was an advisor to the Seljuk dynasty. And he was an advisor to Sultan Malik Shah. And Nizam al-Mulk also funded the madrasas of Imam al-Ghazali, rahimahullah. And he was once advising Malik Shah, the Sultan, and he was talking to him about why he had been funding all of these madrasas and these schools and these colleges, and why it was so important to be funding all of these activities. The Sultan was asking him, "You're spending too much money in the budget, and what are you trying to do here?" And so at this time, the Sultan was quite young, and he was quite old. And so I'll say it in Arabic first because it's quite nice, and then I'll say the translation. So Nizam al-Mulk is talking to the Sultan, and he says to him, أنت مشتغل بلذاتك منهمك في شهواتك وأكثر ما يصعد إلى الله تعالى معصيك دون طاعاتك وجيوشك الذي تعدهم للنوائب إذا احتشدوا كافحوا عنك بسيف طوله ذراعان وقوس لا ينتهي مدى مرماه 300 ذراع وهم مع ذلك مستغرقون في المعاصي والخمور والملاهي والمزمار والتنبور وأنا أقمت لك جيشا يسمى جيش الليل إذا نامت جيوش بهم فأرسلوا دموعهم وأطلقوا بالدعاء ألسنتهم ومدوا إلى الله تعالى أكفهم بالدعاء لك وجيوشك فأنت وجيوشك في خفارتهم تعيشون وبدعائهم تبيتون وببركاتهم تمطرون وترزقون تمرك سهامهم بالدعاء والتضرع فبكى أبو الفتح الملك شاه بكاء شديدا ثم قال شاباش يا أبتي شاباش أكثر لي من هذا الجيش. So there's a story where basically he talks to the Sultan and he tells him, You're engulfed in your desires. Everything you do, your army is simply drinking, and they are engaging in time wasting. What I've done by funding this cultural heritage, these religious schools,
Итак, почему я финансирую?
I have given you a different army. Your army is the army of the day. My army is the army of the night. And when we go out and we pray and we uphold our moral values, we give you a type of power. And that power is an important power. And that is basically the summary of what I wanted to say today, that we should never forget the great soft power that lies in our heritage, in our morality, in our spirituality. Thank you for your time today.
Спасибо. Спасибо большое. Интересный доклад.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting presentation. Next speaker is I am. I'm an archaeologist. Therefore, you will feel it from my presentation. And I hoped that mostly foreigners speakers will be present here and who is not very deep acquainted with our ancient story. Okay, I'm starting. Tatarstan Republic within the Russian Federation is different from other Russian Federation subjects with its steady economic development and big potential. The success of Tatarstan in the area of economics and culture are explained by not by a unique geographical conditions, not by the attitude of Moscow government. The reason is its ancient history. The Tatars are nation-oriented people, started from Great Bulgar Khanate in the end of the 9th century, and in 1236 they lived in separate states. In the period of reign of the Horde, they were considered the strongest region of Juchits. And after the depletion of the Horde, they again created their own state, the Khanate of Kazan, which was won by the Russian Tsar Ivan Grozny in 1552. The prosperity of material and spiritual culture of the Khanate was the high development of Bulgarian civilization in the end of 1922, and acceptance of Islam by them. Due to acceptance of Islam, we were the archaeologists and studies and Bulgar study. We connected with the cities of bricks and stone architecture of Oriental type. These were mosques, saunas, and caravans, distribution of the written culture in Arabian language, and also educated class appearance. And they start coin stamping with Jafar ibn Abdullah scriptures. The tradition of Hajj in Mecca was started in 900. The most northern country in the Islamic world is Volga, Bulgaria, which was officially accepted by Caliphate in 922. However, it had a different name. The country close to the Darkness Sea. These two titles are conditioned by the far distance of Bulgaria from different countries of Muslim world, which were located in the south pole of Eurasian continent. Unfortunately, our climate conditions and very difficult history with many wars, they didn't provide preservance of the monuments of history. Very little quantity of these monuments are being preserved now. Some monuments are preserved in Bilar, Alaboga, Golden, Hort, Bulgar, and Khanate of Kazan. Still, they are able to attract the attention of our foreign and local tourists. Due to the efforts of archaeologists, restorators, and experts on monument presentation, the Kazan, Kremlin, Bulgar, and Sviazhsk Island were included in the list of the World Cultural Heritage of UNESCO. Our brief view of touristic site scene of Islam heritage, we can start from Bilar. This is the greatest Middle Age city of Europe. Bilar is a great city. Please look at the scheme of the city. This is the internal city and external city. It's practically a copy of Baghdad city. How we present Bilar before Mongolian epoch. This is the picture of an artist, Firinat Kalikov, Bilar under construction. You can see the architectural structures before constructing the city, and you also see internal and external city. These are the remnants of the cathedral mosque in the center of Bilar, built in 922. You see the stony part with white stone and wooden part. The total square is 2,500 square meters. This is a mosque of the 10th century. It was built in 922. Do you remember the Baghdad embassy? This Baghdad mosque is greater than Kursharif Mosque in Kazan, Kremlin. It's a different city, Alaboga, at Kama River. At the Kama River, here the tower is preserved from the 12th century, and another part was not preserved, but it was revealed by archaeologists. The remains of a brick bathhouse in a Bulgarian city in the 10th until the 13th century. This place was also revealed by archaeologists near the village Krasnoye, Sundukovo, in the Ulyanovsk region. You see this bathhouse and hammam was loved by ancient Tatars because this was an element of Muslim culture. This is the bronze lock with good wishes to its owner, Abu Bakr. It was revealed in Bilar, and it shows Muslim culture. Here you see the calligraphic letters, and with love. It was made with love, the speaker says, inscription. This is Iranian bowl. Bulgars were closely cooperating with other countries in the Middle Asia. Trade connections were supported. When speaking about trade connections with Eastern countries, I want to remind you the original statement of Persian historian Abil Hassan Abi Haki about the message in the form of money and gifts. And the influence of the East has been perceived in all the spheres of our culture. Next revelation is a Quran case, a cover for storing the Quran, Bilyar City. It is kept in the National Museum of Finland, and this collection of findings was sent to Finland in the beginning of the 20th century, where Finland was within the Soviet Union. These are bathhouse of billiard. You see these four brick buildings. Some were called the house of the famous king, and the archaeologists tried to understand what it was. I think that Mr. Rashid Dar has recognized a hammam bathhouse in this picture. Next is a picture. Here you see Bulgar. I think we are planning our travel to Bulgar within this forum. This is the 14th century. This is administrative center of Bulgar. This is mosque of the end of the 13th and the beginning of the 14th century. This was Cathedral Mosque. This is Northern Mausoleum. Here, a small museum is arranged, and some graves are there. This is Eastern Mausoleum. They are similar to our Middle Asian monuments. Here you see the remnants of white chamber, and they are similar to our monuments because they were used in the Russian period already. They were cooking fish there. They had storages there. Therefore, they are kept in good conditions. And the last two pictures. This is Kazan city, Kazan Kremlin. This is the center where the Tower of Syumbeki is here. And the mausoleum of 6 Kazan Khans. They are buried here. They were revealed in 2004 and 2005. The last graveyard of the last Khan is depicted here. All these historical objects have been preserved until nowadays, although not in the original condition. However, they are attractive for tourists, first of all for foreign tourists. We were praised for our findings because we give people back their heritage. We were very much praised by the member of the government that humanitarian sciences, they require funds, but archaeological findings bring profit. You know, because all these archaeological discoveries, they become heritage of UNESCO, and they bring money to our countries in form of tourists, because they attract tourist flow, and tourists bring money to the budget. Our next presentation is Renat Abanov. The cultural architecture of Kasimov city. This is another Khanate city. Renat is the leader of the cultural department. He's the head of Department of Culture of Religious Board of Muslims of the Russian Federation. Dear Leonid Borisovich, dear Leonid Rudolfovich, dear participants and guests of our session. First of all, as my introduction, I'm greeting the chief of the spiritual board of the Russian Federation, Mufti Sheikh Ravilka Hazrat Kanudin. I wanted to tell you about Kasimov city. This is a unique city. My speech is a soft continuation of the story about post-Horde epoch Khanate. Kasimov is a Muslim city, and it is also an Orthodox city. It's a provincial city, and it's a capital city. In 1937, the future Emperor Alexander II, he noticed that from the side view of Murom, this city seems to be a village, and from the other side, it looks like a capital. And the Khanate mosque is on the top of the hill. This city is very controversial. This city was built, Tatar Khanate was built here in the beginning, and some say that it was ruled by Tatars. Some say it was ruled by Khanate, but it doesn't matter. It's just wonderful. I would like to describe you the touristic potential of this city. When you enter the city, this stellar is meeting you, and the name of the city is written here, Kasimov or Kasim. So usually it is called Allah or Kala. Starting from 1452, Kasimov is being representing a city which unites two aspects, the Russian one and the Tatar one. And the local citizens and the government of the city, they established this name, Kasimov. So it is a brand of the Russian Federation. The unique feature of the city is that within the border of the city, there is a Khanate mosque. It is a big mosque which preserves the architectural features of post-Horde Khanate. It's a prayer tower. Kasimov city has a consequent architecture of Tatar tradition. So this Khanate prayer tower was built in the end of the 15th century. And the mausoleum that you see on the right picture is was built in the 16th century. The first floor of the Khanate mosque was built in the 18th century. Then Tatar graveyard and the mosques around Kasimov city, they were built in the 18th and 19th centuries, and some mosques were built in the 20th century. So there are many architectural monuments and discoveries from 14th up to the 20th century. The spiritual governance of the city is prevalent. One of the most important achievements is giving back the mosque to the believers. Before it was a museum. Now the mosque has been reconstructed, and after it has the reconstruction is finished, then people will be invited there for the prayers. Modern city which meets the guests, tourists and pilgrims. They meet them with souvenir production. And one of the most popular attraction for tourists is Khanate Mosque. So this Khanate Mosque is the main brand of the city. Its history is up to 3 centuries. This prayer tower was built in the end of the 15th century. And the floors, the first, second, and the third were built in accordingly 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries. And they were built by the dynasty of Shakul. When we talk about the Tatar heritage of the modern Kasimov city, it's quite diverse. First of all, these are houses of these rich people, of merchants of the city. They look like this. And also, one of the specific feature of the city is gullies. All the surface of the land has many gullies. Therefore, there are specific features in buildings. And these houses, they have special features of Tatar symbol on the roofs. Then new types of facades appear, which were called besti. Generally, Tatar types of architecture is prevalent in Kazan, in Kasimov city. Here you see the gates. This type of gates are in the village of Arlar, and local citizens say about these gates that these are Tatar-style gates. It means that previously they belonged to a Muslim family. If you look at this picture, then we see a new mosque. We see a panorama of the street. It's like a shadow of Qasim Khanate, and also we see here the old Qasimov graveyard. Also we have here Tekiye, the mausoleum of Shakul dynasty. Besides, close to the city, Qasimov city, we have some architectural constructions related to Tatar and Muslim heritage. This is women's mosque. It is built near the river, and it belongs to the old dynasty Abgulatov. Also the mosque of Tolstikov. It's a unique stone mosque which was built in a rich Tatar city, and it is reconstructed by a Russian Orthodox family which built this mosque as a repentant act for their family, which participates in the killing of the family of Muslim priests. These are the gates type, which you can see in residence Tsaritsino. And it is pleasant that nowadays that Kasimov city is not limited with the historical monuments, but also Kasimov city is very attractive to the tourists. It is one of the most popular attractive places. And it has a Tatar component as a specific feature. This monument of Kazan Queen communique, she was the second wife of the Shah Ali. This monument became the second one which was dedicated to Kazan Queen. And then they opened a park, which is one of the most popular places of recreation of tourists and guests. Besides this monument and a park, there are several Tatar cafe and restaurants, like one of them is Tatar Fable Story, where you can taste traditional Tatar dishes and the local dishes. Also, we plan to open a historical museum dedicated to Kasimov Tatars and brand souvenirs. Also, there is a museum nearby, and Tatar, of course, Tatar Culture Center. This is the place of tourist attractions and Kasimov guests. The city is not big. The population is around 20,000 citizens. But if we refer to the famous French saying that in every Russian there is Tatar roots. In the frames of our research, we revealed that Kasimov is the city where generally Tatars live. Every citizen here has Tatar roots. roots. The population is quite passionate and participate in the development of touristic potential of the city. And in conclusion, in 2023, Moscow was visited by around 3.5 million of foreign tourists, including Turkish, Qatars, and the UAE tourists, including Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. Kasimov is close to Moscow, so any foreign tourist, not only Islamic one, but all the tourists can easily visit Kasimov, especially with opening of this new highway M12. And you can see lots of touristic attractions and unique architectural monuments just for one day. Kasimov city is interesting also for internal tourists from Moscow and for Tatarstan citizens, especially for Islamic tourists. Nowadays, the city is building touristic infrastructure. Also, archaeological researches have been taking place here. And here you can get lots of information about Tatar and Muslim heritage. I've been cooperating closely with this city for many years, and I can assure you that Kasimov city is open, is open for those visitors who want to study the story of the city and of Tatarstan, both. So thank you for your attention. I wish you successful work at our session.
Продолжаем. Нурия Ханна подошла. Сейчас слово вам. Рукописный Коран в собраниях Казани. Традиции.
The next speech will be the handwritten Quran in the collections of Kazan. A colleague from the literature heritage of the University of History. The time limit is 7 minutes. Dear colleagues, I would like to speak about the researches of the recent years published here in Kazan. And to begin, Kazan is the city, is the center where the largest writings in Arabic graphics are collected in Russia. Maybe it may be compared to Dagestan collection. It has over 30,000 pieces, and these writings are distributed among several institutions. The largest one in Kazan State University, the second one in the Academy of Sciences of Russia in Kazan, the third one, the National Library of the Republic, then the National Archive and the State Museum. There are also several collections. Through these collections are not big, but certain pieces, certain items are very valuable. What is the peculiarity of our collection? We have some pieces of writing created by Muslim Tatars or were collected by Tatar intelligent people. Before the revolution of 1917, these were private collections. Later, in 20s, they were gathered to a state collection. A Central Eastern Library Museum was created. And the heart of this collection became the the books of our famous journalist, academician, and publisher, and a well-known person, Valjan Barudi. Further on, this collection was supplemented, and in the 30s, along with other collections, it was passed to Kazan University. By the beginning of the Second World War, there were 3,000 writings and manuscripts. All other pieces appeared in the 60s of the 20th century, thanks to archaeological missions that went both to Tatarstan settlements and villages, and even beyond Tatarstan to some republics of the former Soviet Union where Tatar population lived. As of today, one of such interesting pages of our collection are the handwritten Quran. As Muslims know, Tatars used to copy written Quran for themselves and used to bring them from their trips to Middle Asia. They brought the writings from the Middle East. Let me mention today the names of some collectors of Kazan, and some written copies of Quran were received from their collections. In particular, you can see now on the slide Shihabuddin Marjani. In the middle of the 19th century, he returned from the Middle Asia after finishing the madrasa there. And he brought some books with him and continued collecting them. So finally, he had a very big library. He made a description of this library, but in the beginning of the 20th century, after his death, this collection was stored in the house of one of his sons, but there was a fire, and unfortunately the major part of this library was lost. The parts that were stored in the houses of other children survived, and those stored in the mosque where he served. And the next collectioner, Alim Aljan Barudi, he was the first mufti who was elected before muftis were appointed. When returning from Bukhara and Samarkand, he brought a lot of books on 16 camels, because the collection was really huge. He delivered the books this way from Bukhara to Uralsk, and then the books were reloaded from camels to trolleys. His library is the core of the collection of the Kazan University. The next collectioner is famous Said Vahidi, who collected the books in 1911, 1914. He found the tag of Sahib Garey, the tag for governance. He cooperated with academicians from the Russian Institute of Eastern Sciences. Another person is Alexander Forvilken, who collected a small number of Eastern writings, including Quran. I want to show some pieces stored in our university. This is a small one. It is called Alexandria List. when two big pieces of paper are joined together as one big page. It dates back to the 16th century. It is one of the earliest of the most ancient pieces of our collection. Another manuscript is a letter left back from the Tatar school of writing. Maybe it is not a classical example. It was stored in the house of famous family Arsaev. Another famous manuscript is from the collection of the Kazan University. It is a decorative cover from Quran. Now you can see the writing from the Middle Asia. Let me just quickly click them through. Another piece is a manuscript from our collection. Please pay attention to these features of calligraphics. The letters are extended. This is a peculiarity. Both manuscripts are from India. This manuscript was belonging to Barudi. And here you can see the same feature, the same extended letters. What is interesting, it is a large format manuscript. And when it was bound in Kazan, the fields were cut, unfortunately. And between the pages, you can see the red elements. This is a translation into the Persian language. And another beautiful manuscript is Quran, given by a widow of Wilken as a gift to our museum. And now you see the Quran. It is a Shiraz tradition dating back to the 14th century. This is the manuscript of the epoch of Sultan Ibrahim. It is decorated very colorfully. Thanks for your attention. Dear colleagues, we have two presentations left. 5 minutes for each presentation, because next there will be another session in this room. Please do your best to be short. I thought we will have more time, but unfortunately, Marcel Ibrahimov, The Muslim Images and Motifs in the Poetry of Gabdullah Tokay. Good morning, dear colleagues. Thank you for the invitation to participate in the work of such a representative forum. As our moderator gave me only 5 minutes, I would like to deviate from the topic announced, because certainly I would not be able to speak about the poetry of Gabdullah Tokay within 5 minutes. Let me speak about the role of literature as a factor of intercultural communication. First, I would like to highlight what our colleague, Mr. Rashid Adar, told us, that his acquaintance with Russian culture and literature started from Dostoevsky. We understand clearly that literature is kind of gate to understanding, to knowing other cultures. And a person who wants to learn something about Tatar culture, its traditions, and mental foundation principles, they refer to literature. We may state that Tatar literature is unique in its historical development, because it was developing as an Eastern literature, referring to some traditions and culture of Arab Muslim East. If we refer to the writings of the authors of the Bulgar period, Дауд, Zaksini, Zuhat Ariat. The beauty of gardens and the relief for suffering hearts. The writings of Kulgali, Kasa Yusuf, the writings of the Golden Horde period. It is Saif Sarai and a magnificent poet, Kudba, and the later writings of the period of Kazan Khanate, Sayyid Kul Sharif. He was also a poet. He did not simply write some historical manuscripts. He also wrote about religion. Obviously, we see that all this history is basing and is rooting to the Arab and Muslim literature classics. It was growing in the dialogue with an Arab-Muslim classic literature. When speaking about the development of the Tatar literature from the second half of the 19th century is usually explained as through the processes of the beginning secularization of literature, when secular content starts displacing religious content. But, dear colleagues, we must not believe that it was an absolute displacement, since religious topics and motives. So, Tatar literature in this period is in active dialogue with both European classic literature and Russian classic literature. Religious motives still remain in the literature, in Tatar literature. Maybe not as in the medieval literature, not at the level of those canons and traditions, but still some images, some motives continue to be there, even in the creative writings of the authors who maybe positioned themselves as secular authors. And when speaking about my topic, I thought that you all have arrived to Kazan, to Tatarstan, and first you found yourself in the airport of after the named after Gabdullah Tokay. It is one of the brightest brands in Russia and in Tatarstan. I believe it may be attractive for the entire global community, including Muslim Ummah. Why? Because in the creative writings of Gabdullah Tokay, religious topics and images take significant place. The word Quran repeats in his writings more than 30 times. There are some reminiscences, some references from different religion sources can be found very often in Tokay's writings. So during the Soviet period, he was shown more as an atheist poet. Now we shall revise our ideas in this respect. We shall reevaluate his creative writings and unveil his national and ethnic affiliation, self-identity, including this religion component. Thank you. The next speaker is Rifat Fatahov, one of the most prominent representatives of Tatar culture. Well, after these words were said, I'm ready to complete my presentation, actually. I would like to say that I've heard very interesting and informative speeches here in almost every presentation. We are looking for that soft power that is so required to us today in our modern world, in the context of our global countering. I've heard this in the speeches of many colleagues. in the speech of Renata Bianov and other colleagues. After these speeches, I wanted to immediately go to Kasimov city. Of course, the most attractive force, power in the world is culture. A rich and abundant world of Muslim culture has a specific element, which is music. Recently, music received a strong impetus in Muslim countries. It is an impetus for development. We know that once upon a time there were some limitations of religious nature, but at the same time we know that Quran does not directly prohibit music and related activities. We know that in one of hadiths it is said that Allah is beautiful and He adores beauty. In the global world, the issues of cultural dialogue and diversity became more and more important. The festival Oriental Bazaar in Kazan sets the task of constructive dialogue of cultures, assuming interaction and cooperation of cultures when cultures enrich each other without losing their identity. It must be cooperation on the equal balance. The Oriental Bazaar in Kazan is a high-scale project which is an element of the chain of our festivals that conducted many years ago. Today, we may state that it is unique because it is the only large music event today in Russia with the participation of all representatives of the Eastern world. Thus, it lays an absolutely new direction and basis to the integration to the development of the connection between Russia and the countries of the Islamic world. The festival expands every year. Last year, the participants of our festival were the representatives of 20 countries and 15 regions of Russia. This year, we expect 30 countries and 20 regions to send their participants. And above all, first of all, the representatives of Islamic world. The festival will be held in November, and at the same time, a scientific and academic and practical conference will be held within the framework of this festival to discuss the issues of possible interaction and mutual integration. Maybe we continue the topics discussed today during that conference. I see the interest to this festival from Western countries as well, for example, from Italy, and I'm not surprised since the culture is the only thing in the world that does not need translation. Today we can set physical boundaries between peoples, between countries, but we cannot divide people and countries. We cannot set cultural boundaries, especially today in the epoch of global information technologies, which implies that the concept of culture cancellation, which is imposed artificially today by the West, has no sense. I invite you all to secure and to develop our cultural values. We often say that culture will save the world, but we must keep in mind that this is a continuation. Culture will save the world if the world saves this culture. To conclude, I would like to address our guests from other countries and from Russian regions. We are waiting all of you in autumn at our festival, and I hope that those bright and colorful presentations, performances from your countries will make us happy there. You are very welcome to Kazan Oriental Bazaar. Thank you very much for your presentation.
And the last presentation from Rustem Gabergevich. Thank you. I'm representing Kazan Federal University Ethnical Department. I would like to say a couple of words about the cultural heritage that we are discussing today. We must notice that our region, as it was told before, has a vast heritage. And Volga region, Tatarstan, and the adjacent regions, it's a wonderful combination of Turks culture and Muslim culture and Russian culture. So it means that we have a very important basis of Turks culture in the form of literature, music, and culture, and it is very much connected with Islamic culture. So the component of the interconnection and intercooperation impacts a lot on the citizen of our city and our region. Recently, at one conference, we discussed a question of Islam legislation. It is the question of mahar and kalim, which is paid before Muslim wedding. So it's a certain payment before wedding, and it is related to Muslim people. However, it has a bit different meaning. So it's like a payment to a girl's parents for her raising. However, it is a component of Muslim law, and they are implemented in practice in daily life of Muslim people. And there are many examples like that. So the richness of culture of our people, of Volga region people, of the Central Asian people and Caucasus people, their culture is based on the combination of historical culture and the development of Islam. And in the conclusion, in our Kazan Federal University, the Islamic law like fiqh and Shariat have been a lot discussed and studied. And this topic is quite relevant, and we plan to include it in our educational program. So it's quite relevant nowadays. And in the end, I want to invite all the colleagues who are related to the Islamic law to our conference, which will take place since the 23rd September in the Kazan Federal University. Thank you for your presentation, dear colleagues, dear friends. Thank you very much for participation in our session. And a couple of announcements. At 3:30 p.m. we are invited to a plenary session. And now please take a group photo. And a short notice. Dear Chief of our session, we are very thankful to you for very interesting information that you have provided us. This Islamic heritage brings us really profit, and as the entrepreneurs, as business people, we will also invest in your culture. So I like.
لما استقبل في المدينة استقبل في تلك المرحلة قبل
And as I told before, 400 years ago, I was met with a son. When I came to Medina from Mecca, all these instruments were enthusing me with happiness. And I think that all these musical instruments should be used now. So I'm addressing to my friend who lived in America before, and now he lives in Istanbul. Thank you, my friend and colleague, for your examples and for your presentation, where you discussed about the human, and also you told very interesting thing about this business topic and human life. So I thank all the speakers, and I like to award you with diplomas for all our friends from Russia and from other countries.